All right. All right. So we're all here to talk about buyers, right? I started off, like I said before, predominantly working with buyers. And to be quite honest, like I actually loved working with buyers before I became a mom, right? Because I felt like I had more control. Obviously, it was a different market when I started, okay, because I started 8 years ago. So it was much easier to get an offer accepted. Not easier because there was a lot of cash at the time too, but I had it down to a science. Okay, I knew that I could take a buyer out to see 5 properties, 6 properties max one day and get an offer accepted, right? When I first started. And that's why I felt like I had more control over the client versus the listing I felt at the time you could put it up for sale, right? But you're waiting for a buyer to like it and love it. And if it's not a pretty listing, it could potentially be sitting there for a little while, right? So that's why I loved buyers in the beginning. Now, as realtors, we all hear all the time, like, oh, buyers are liars, buyers are not faithful, they're not loyal, they leave you, all of those things, right? In my 8 years, and I don't say this to brag, I've had 2 buyers ever leave me, okay, in 8 years, right? And I think that the biggest thing was the communication, right? And don't get me wrong, I was not great at it in the beginning, okay, because I was emotional like everybody else. I was attached to the result like everybody else. So it came with time. So, what if I can make you like to work with buyers by just helping you with your skills, right? Giving you the skill set to know how to work with a buyer. Remember, this is an emotional journey for them. And I make that very clear. I know this is going to be emotional. I always say, like, we're going to go on an emotional roller coaster together. We may laugh, we may cry. I make a joke about it. We may laugh, we may cry, but we're going to stick together throughout the whole thing, right? So, we start off with what I like to call the indoctrination phase, right? This is the phase where you get the lead, whether it comes from a referral, your family, your best friend. I've had people from Zillow call me, okay? No matter where the referral comes from or the buyer comes from, you always do the same procedure, right? In the beginning, I didn't know this. In the beginning, if it was my friend, it was more relaxed, it was cool, but those are the times that you need to stick to it the most. Okay, so the phone call comes in, you talk to the client, you introduce yourself, okay, assuming that they don't know you, okay, and you schedule either an in-person buyer's consultation where you sit down with them or a Zoom meeting, right? I personally am much better at face-to-face than over the phone. That's me. I feel comfortable with it, and I know that that's where I'm the best at. Again, this should be no different than a listing presentation. You go to a listing presentation and you sit down with the seller and you're pitching yourself to them basically and why you are going to provide the best service and why you're going to sell their house. It's no different with a buyer. We get very comfortable with buyers because they come easier in a sense than sellers. But it should be no different. If you're a professional and this is your business, you need to run it like one, right? So you sit down with them either in person again or Zoom meeting, and you are going to explain to them the full process, right? Because you want to establish that trust, that credibility, that I'm a professional, okay? Again, I wrote, you look professional and you build trust when you do these meetings. You follow the same exact steps, whether it's a referral or someone you know. And then you set expectations, okay? Now, during your consultation, you explain the process thoroughly, okay? We do this every day. This is our job, right? They do not. And they're buying an asset. This is the biggest decision of their life. Most people have all of their money poured into their homes. They don't have much more money sitting in their banks. That is their only asset. Okay? So you need to sit down with them and explain how the MLS works. You have to explain to them that working with you is they're only supposed to work with you in a nice way, right? So like for me, I let them know, hey, like any property that you guys see on realtor.com, on Zillow.com, any of those things, because I know for a fact that my clients are so excited to be able to start the house hunting process, that they're going to look at these websites and all of those things. I let them know whatever you see online, take a screenshot, text it to me. Okay, that way they know that not to reach out directly to the listing agent or to whatever agents online, thinking that, I don't know, you're going to be able to help them anyway. And I tell them exactly, I was scared before to say like, well, you're going to X me out of the deal. I have no problem saying that anymore. Like, I say it in a nice way. Like, if you want me to be able to help you throughout this process, I need you to send me the screenshot so that I can do all the legwork for you, right? I let them know I will schedule all the showings for you. I will go to the showing with you. I will negotiate for you. I want this to be as smooth as a process for you and not burden you with any of the work, right? So they're like, wow, this is amazing, right? They're going to be loyal to you, right? So I explain the MLS. What I mean by explaining the MLS, I let them know that everybody has access to the same listings. Because I've had so many people call me and tell me, oh, you know, what listings do you have? Because this person told me that they have these listings, and they don't understand that there's a system that we all see the same listings. So I tell them, hey, on the MLS, we all have access to the same listings. Those, you know, whatever listings you see, the realtors represent the seller, right? I will be representing you, but I can still show you those listings, okay? I also let them know that there's only certain filters I can add to the properties. So, for example, the buyer tells me, I want a turnkey property that's 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, blah, 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 so on and so forth. A brand new roof, a brand new this, right? There's no filters for a brand new roof. There's no filters for a turnkey. I mean, there should be for all of that. But which realtors would really fill it out completely the way they should be? Yeah, exactly. Okay. So I let them know the properties that I'm going to be sending you out like weekly. What I try to do is send a batch myself that I have handpicked for them weekly, not every day, weekly. Okay. Now, I will put you on the automated system. This automated system will start pumping out properties to you based on your basic criteria. Okay. Meaning bedroom, bathroom, price point, location, all of those things. But I cannot filter condition of property. So you will start seeing properties coming in from the automated system that may or may not be turnkey like you want it. But again, communication, right? Because in the beginning, I didn't say that. And in the beginning, I had angry buyers telling me, oh, but I told you that I wanted a turnkey property, and look at what you're sending me. Now I have to sort through this, right? So I'm setting that expectation from the beginning so that they cannot tell me that I'm sending them something that they don't want, right? Now, I also say, I follow that up with the great thing about the automated system. I let them know we will be one step ahead because you will be receiving all the things that are coming out on the market. And I tell them, you know, I'm not sitting at the computer all day long, so I don't want you to miss out on any property that gets listed. You know, I want you to be able to receive it as soon as it comes out on the market. And they're like, oh my God, absolutely. Yes, I love that. So you just, you know, you just nipped it in the butt, basically. Okay. All right.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yes.
Since you like face-to-face interaction, how do you go about and where do you go about having that consultation?
So before I had an office space where I did it, and now I do it mostly on Zoom. There's been plenty of times that if I don't have an office space, I'll meet them at the nearest Starbucks. Or I've even driven to clients' house when they're elderly. You know, I've had to drive to Hialeah, to Kendall, to here, to there, but they were my loyal clients after that. And they did not leave me. Where other people are like, oh no, after I put in X amount of hours and I showed them 7 properties, they decided to go with another realtor because they were working with 2 realtors at the same time. You know, so I rather do that in the beginning to be able to establish that relationship. Yeah. So again, it's about setting the proper expectations, right? Now, it is very different now, and I think it's even more important now to establish these expectations because of our current market, right? When I started doing it, it was, again, a lot, not easier, but different market, right? And I felt, was there a need? Sure, I was a professional, but like now it's like dire, right? Because you're going to have to put in several offers sometimes before an offer gets accepted, and the buyer doesn't know everything you're doing for them, and they're going to think, well, this person doesn't know what they're doing because you're not communicating with them, educating them, and speaking to them about the process. So they're going to leave you for another realtor, right? So letting them know what our current market is, letting them know, you know, that you may not get the one that you're in love with right away. It may take 5, 6, 7, 8 offers because it has happened to many people. Okay, but I tell them, do not get discouraged. Like, there's even times that I'm like, you know, this just wasn't the one for you. The one for you is out there. We're gonna find the one for you. You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta say, you know, all the things to make them feel good, right? So I also let them know that as we go through the process, right? I'm like, you know, this is probably it's probably overwhelming. It's probably a lot of information. I can understand, but don't worry. As we go through the process, I will be telling you what's going to happen before it happens, right? And they're like, oh, okay, perfect. Because, of course, it's a lot of information. We do this every day. They do not, okay? So I let them know that I'll be explaining the process. Now, in this buyer's consultation, what I find that has helped so much is doing a wants list and a needs list, right? So I have them sit down and break the paper into 2 columns, wants, needs. What are absolute must-haves that if the property doesn't have this, it's a deal breaker, right? Okay, I have a family of X amount of people, so I need these many rooms, no exceptions. Okay, that's you need, right? Want, well, I mean, I would love to have a pool, but in my price range, if I can't have a pool, it's okay too. Okay, that goes into want. And the reason why this is important is because you're going to show them a lot of properties. All of that is going to turn into mush in their brain, right? It's super overwhelming. So it's going to get emotional. Emotions are going to heighten. And now all of a sudden they're going to forget what was in the wants and what was in the needs. And they're like, yo, no, but that property doesn't have a pool. Okay, no, but it has, here goes the list. Everything you said you needed, it has it. The pool was a want, and now we've seen 13 properties that didn't have everything in your need, and this one does, right? So you bring them back to reality, right? For lack of a better way of saying it. So it's super helpful. It's super helpful because emotions sometimes get in the way and it blurs things. Again, helps when buyers are touring several properties. Okay. So now you went through the buyer's consultation. You walked them through the whole thing. Oh, I didn't even put in there. Did I skip it? Oh, yeah. So let's go back. Sorry, I skipped it. I didn't see it. I talked to them about the pre-approval process, right? 2 things. It is very important to go out and get pre-approved, right? in this case, at this point in my career, I try to make sure that they use my team, right? Because with my team, I have a lot of influence, right? I know, that my team's going to get the job done. I know that I can call Melinda at whatever time and she'll either text me back if she's busy, or she's going to call me right after, So I prefer to use my team and I tell them the truth. Like, listen, with my team, I have influence. If you want to use someone that I have no influence with, like, I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not going to turn down the business, and you could always build relationships, but I would prefer to use people that I'm used to using because I feel comfortable telling them, hey, what the heck is going on? You know? Also, a lot of them are going to give you pushback and they're going to tell you, oh, but I don't want to run my credit, right? Because there's that misconception to a certain extent that if you run your credit, it's going to hurt you, you're not going to be able to buy, all these things. Even if they run their credit with, let's say, for example, they started off with Chase, right, to give a big bank. Even if they then decide to be smarter and and do their loan and do their loan with an actual mortgage company and they rerun their credit, okay, it's what's called like smart shopping. As long as you're not running your credit to get a car and a credit card and a house, that's frowned upon. But when they see that it's just the regular mortgage bank and you're just getting a different opinion, it doesn't hurt as much, right? So that's that point. Now, people are like, well, or buyers are like, well, no, but I just want to see houses first. That's great. Okay. But how about when you go to the mall, right? Do you go to the mall without checking to see how much money you have in the bank to spend?
People do.
I have in the past. I'm like, I don't want to know how much money I spent already. As long as it doesn't decline, I'll keep on going. Just kidding. So technically you shouldn't, okay? So you need to know what number you can afford, right? And it goes both ways. It goes as far as like you don't know if maybe you're looking at properties that you're not really in love with and you could afford a little bit more, but you wouldn't know that because you didn't try to get pre-approved first. Or maybe you're looking at properties that are way too expensive that you're not going to get approved for and you need to bring it down a little bit. So they need to go and get pre-approved first. Okay. Now, have I ever shown a property without a pre-approval? Yes. Okay. And I'm going to explain why. I have shown a property without a pre-approval one time. It was a Zillow lead. She wanted to see a property right then and there. I had the full conversation and I said, I can either have her hang up, call somebody else that's going to do it for her, or because I'm an in-person person, I can go meet her right now. I'm not busy, build that relationship with her right now in person, and then get her to get pre-approved. It's not always recommended. Like, I had to get a feel for how serious she was, right? And that obviously comes with experience. And sure enough, I went, I showed her the property. She got pre-approved right after. I got her to close. So it's a case-by-case basis, but most times than not, I won't show a property without a pre-approval. Okay? All right. Can you guys tell that I'm like still shaking?
No.
No.
You are pointing it out to us, though.
It's okay. I feel like if I say it, it goes away. So, all right, again, communication is key. And I say it so many times because it's so important, right? You're sitting at your desk, you're scheduling showings. Your buyer does not know the work you're putting in for them because they're not watching you, okay? They don't have a little camera inside of your office, home, whatever, watching you work for them. For all they know, you're letting them sit there and not doing anything for them. So you need to be that quote unquote, what some people call annoying, person and say, hey, mind you, this is when you're scheduling showings, for example. Hey, I just sent out a request for the showing that you wanted of 123 Main Street. I'm just waiting for a confirmation. Hey, I just followed up. They haven't gotten back to me, but I'm going to continue to follow up just so you know that I'm working for you. Okay, and just be consistent, right? Let them know, hey, I just sent out an email. Hey, they still haven't called me, so I called the broker because they're not answering me, because I've had to call brokers before because they don't answer a showing request or whatever. Okay, so you have to let them know and communicate that you are constantly working for them, because they don't know that. Okay, because that's another reason for them to go with another realtor. Okay, now, I do not schedule more than 5 or 6 showings per day. And 5 or 6 to me is a little much. It's a little much. Well, nowadays there's not even enough inventory sometimes to do 5 or 6 showings. But yeah, 5 or 6 at max. And only because it is so overwhelming, right? And call me old fashioned, I print out the sheet for them, the one that doesn't have the listing agent's information. Do not print the one with the listing agent's information. Okay, I print one for each one, I staple it, I get there, I hand it to them, and I hand them a pen. Exactly. Okay, so that as they go along, they're saying, no, this one looks whatever. No, I didn't like this on this one, right? Because it's so many properties that they're going to see that they're going to forget, and it's going to get super overwhelming. So why not make their job and their decision so much faster so they can decide you could get a contract and get paid, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want to get to the closing table and have our money in the bank. So I take them printouts for them to make notes. I also work with a lender who has a system called SteadKey. I don't know if other lenders do this. I've worked with several lenders on different occasions that are super helpful, but this system allows you to plug in the numbers before you show it to your client to make sure that they will get approved for this property, so that you are not wasting your time. Because sometimes the numbers are so tight. Remember that your buyer gets approved for a monthly amount. Even though they tell us, let's say your buyer's approved for $400,000, right? Yes, because that monthly amount is going to equate to $400,000. But there's a lot more that goes into that than just the payment, right? Insurance, taxes. Does it have an HOA? How much are they putting down? All of those things play into that monthly payment, right? So let's say that client is approved for $400,000, but the taxes are super high, plus they have an HOA, right? And now it puts them over that monthly budget that they could get approved for. Your client is not approved for that property anymore, because although it is a $400,000 property, the rest of it equates to more than what the monthly payment can be, right? So this system allows you to plug in the numbers to make sure that you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting your buyer's time, and you find them a property that they can actually get approved for. Okay. All right.
For every property that you're showing me?
Yeah. Well, now I have my VA that does it, but yes. Yeah. So it's a system that lenders have, right? We don't have it. So the lender, one of the lenders that I work with, has a system, and then for each client, he has it. What's the word I'm looking for?
Set up.
Yeah, he has it set up for the person's numbers, right? So that it equals that monthly payment that they're approved for, right? So now if you plug in all the numbers, and it goes over, let's say, the $2,400 a month payment, right? Given the more or less what the interest rate is now, then you can't show that property. It comes out red, that they're not going to get approved for that. So it's super helpful because you're not wasting your time.
Yeah, because if you go from condo to condo association,
Exactly.
the interest is a little higher, but then in another association, they're like, oh, it's minimum 15% down.
Right.
So you have to put in that 15% down and the HOA and
Yeah.
everything. You would usually have to call your lender.
Yeah.
Be like, hey,
Exactly.
can you run this, and that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I'll pay you back in a minute.
Yeah. But imagine if you're showing 6 properties. Imagine if you're showing 6 properties, what are you going to do? Call your lender and have them run numbers for all 6 properties? They're not going to do that.
No.
They're not going to do that. It's not going to happen. You know, so that's very helpful. You know, having relationships with lenders that and title company, title agents, title attorneys that are team players, you know, to help you, we all help each other is super important. Okay. All right. Preparing the offer, the fun part, right?
That's exciting part.
No, the exciting part is the congratulations, your offer has been accepted. Oh, you're clear to close. Yeah.
I would say close and funded. but-
Yeah, well, that one too. Or even,
Until it's over.
yes, that's, listen, you do not count your money until you see the confirmation of your wire going into your bank account. Okay, because anything can happen. Anything. Okay, so preparing the offer, all right? Now we're going to draft an as-is contract. But before we draft the as-is contract, depending on the listing agent, I'm going to say this loosely. I like to call the listing agent, right? I like to call or text the listing agent simply because, and sometimes I like to call in this market even before I show the property. Like, how soon are you guys making a decision? Because it really sucks to have to go show a property and then find out that in the next hour they're presenting. So you just showed that property. Are you really gonna have time to get home, draft an offer, and do everything? You're kind of tight, right? So I make sure to call the listing agent, try to talk to them, let them know, hey, I'm gonna show your listing, or hey, I just showed your listing. How soon are you gonna be presenting? My client wants to submit an offer. You know, I've had it where it's like I just showed it at 3 and they're making a decision at 5. And I'm like, all right, cool. Just let you know that I'm sending an offer right now. I'm running home and I'm gonna draft it. Please hold off. Right? Sometimes they'll even ask you, like, what are you offering? Because if not, I'm not gonna hold off. Right? Sometimes you have to let them know. Just so you don't waste anybody's time. You know, you don't even have to waste the time of drafting the offer. You know, hopefully that's not the case and you have the winning offer. All right, so preparing the offer. In our current market, and depending on the price point, you may be competing with multiple offers, okay? This is obviously what we're all experiencing. And although it has slowed down compared to 2021, you're still, depending on the price point, competing with multiple offers, right? If you're in that 3, 4, 5, 550, even 600 range, you're still competing with multiple offers. Okay, so you setting expectations, right? You let your buyer know what is going on, right? So that they know that there is a sense of urgency, that there's a sense of like coming in guns blazing from the first offer, right? It's not like, oh, let's negotiate. I love when no, there is no negotiation, right? If the seller says, start doing jumping jacks, okay, and like spin around, that's what you need to do in this market to get it done, right? So I've been fortunate enough where the buyers that I've dealt with, even in the recent times, have understood, you know, the urgency, the market. But sometimes you have those very stubborn clients that there's no way of letting them know, like, and sometimes they have to self-discover, right? And unfortunately for us, it's going to be a time thing, and you have to figure out whether you're willing to put in the time or not, right? But you're going to have to let them lose out on a few offers before they come to terms with the fact that, hey, you know, yes, I need to come in guns blazing. Or let's say your client doesn't have the money to put $5,000-$10,000 over appraised value, right? But they want this house that's completely turnkey. Now you have to have the come to Jesus conversation that any of these properties that are ready to go, all completely fixed, are going to have multiple offers. So why don't we look at homes that maybe need a bathroom renovation or have been sitting on the market for maybe 30 days, right? Because those, you're going to have more opportunity to be able to not have to put the 5 or 10,000, right? So not everybody wants to do a bathroom, not everybody wants to do a kitchen, but sometimes it's worth it because you're going to get your offer accepted because not as many people want those. And I'm not saying that you have to buy a house that's falling apart, but like let's face reality. This is the reality of the situation. You don't have the extra money to put over appraised value, so let's look at something that has less competition, right? And I've had plenty of those conversations, and it takes a little bit of time because they're reluctant, and they have to figure it out for themselves until they get so disappointed that they're like, okay, yeah, no, you're right. Because remember, everybody has a cousin that's a realtor. Everybody has a grandfather that was a realtor and an uncle. Oh my God. Oh my God. Everybody's uncle's an inspector. And I bought a house in 1985. Everybody. Okay. So it's up to you to have the patience, the professionalism, and the intelligence, all right, to be able to navigate them little by little. And I'm going to go back to saying the same thing I said in the beginning, just because I feel like it's super important. In the beginning, I was so emotional. So emotional. I say that again because it was so bad. Why? Because I was attached to the result. And don't get me wrong, I still am to a sense. I want a $13,000 check, right? I want a $10,000 check. Who doesn't? But your buyer, your seller, your client is coming to you, right, for the calm. They are the emotion, right? So if you are as emotional, even though it's not, you feel like it's not coming out through the phone because you're not saying the emotional things, your energy, they feel it, right? So that sense of desperation to get to the closing table, they feel it.
I call it the Chicken Little effect. The sky is falling. When an agent is, for one reason or another, overly anxious or paranoid that the deal's gonna fall through, it makes the client crazy. It sets the wrong set of expectations, and then the deal just goes really hard. Like it just makes it hard for everybody because there's no reasoning and there's no clear thinking. Because if you're in Chicken Little mode, the sky's falling, then you're not going to be thinking, how do I solve this problem, whether it's a negotiation issue or a loan issue or whatever.
I agree. And now looking back, right, I could pinpoint and tell you every single client where I was beyond emotional and where I can see how my emotion made that client worse, right? But I see that now, and again, I'm still the same person. I still want the money at the end. Like I have to put a roof over my head, but I have realized, and I guess it's like emotional maturity. It's true. I mean, I started in this business when I was 29, 30, right? And I'm 38 now. So yeah, it's growth, right? So, and I say that to say like, remain calm, right? You're going to get more being calm than losing your shit just like them, right?
The reality, if I can
of course.
The reality is a numbers game for everybody.
Yeah.
There's a certain cancellation rate in real estate, and you have to be ready for it. You can't expect all your deals to close. There's many different things that can throw a wrench in it. You think that was that? Imagine having multiple of those, and there's always a problem, right? So I had to really step away too and be like, it's not my. I built in a 25% cancellation rate. And last year it's been like 17, like 13. For one reason or another, it's a little lower than the previous years, the last 2 years, I think, because of the inventory issue.
Right.
People are more willing to stick with it. But you need to know that number for yourself, and you need to be able to put that into your strategy. To know that, okay, there's a certain amount, and don't count. Like I had an agent tell me last week, we were closing the next issue, I already spent the commission, so I was like, oh man, good thing it closed, right? Because that's where no kidding, you feel Chicken Little, right? The sky is falling because you already spent that money.
At least for me, and again, me and Natalie talk every day, but it's important to also have a support group,
right,
where you can call and vent, because there are times where she has a specific client, she's going through a certain situation.
Yeah.
and she will call me to tell me, like, how do I handle this?
Right.
What do I do? And then me, that I'm in a more calm state,
Right.
more analytical state, I can tell her, okay,
Right.
have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? So then she's like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
like I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because when you're in it,
But yeah,
like
sometimes
You don't
are.
see.
The client will
Yeah.
drag you on the
Yes.
roller coaster. Like
Yeah.
it's happened to me at least for me personally, when I have, you know, an intense client.
Yeah.
Intense. I even catch myself because you can tell in my tone of voice. Like when I'm like right? So sometimes like I have to like check myself where I'm like breathe, relax, right?
Yeah.
But then I also tell my clients, listen, if I'm not stressed, why are you stressed?
I've said that so many times.
They're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm like, if I'm not worried, if I'm not concerned, if I'm not stressed, why are you stressing out so much?
Right.
So then that also kind of like calms them down, where they're
Yep.
like, okay, you're right, yeah, like we are the guiding force.
Yep.
We are holding their hand, so it's also getting them off the roller coaster sometimes because.
And then I think even setting the right expectations, right?
Mhm.
Now, you're gonna build that as you go along if you're new in the business, but setting up the right expectations up front. Remember we talked about this, is this could possibly happen?
Right.
And then they're like, oh yeah, okay, this is not so wild, like this is
Yeah.
actually part of the way it works.
Yeah.
Right?
And I also like sometimes remember that they think that any little tiny thing is monumental, right? So like thankfully I've had experiences already where like shit really hit the fan, right? So I'm like, yeah, I'm like, listen, this is a very smooth process. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, it is. Let me tell you a story where, and they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, this was a smooth.
Slammed the door in the office. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We had an ex-husband that, was it slammed or punched your door?
He was so pissed about selling the house.
Yeah.
That he just took the door in our office and made a hole in the wall. Like,
Yeah.
He opened it and walked out and just slammed the door. We're like, okay.
I wasn't even there. I think I was out of town or something, and she called me and she's like, and the client just punched the door or slammed the door or something, and I was like, oh my god.
Oh, no.
Property damage.
I was like, oh my god.
Okay, that's very nice of you. Thank you.
Damage to the door.
Yeah, take it off.
For real.
But expect that when they're going through divorce.
Yeah.
Or they're like,
And lately, and for that amount of time, around that time, I was like the divorce queen. Like everybody that was getting a divorce was calling me. I'm like, what is going on? Like I'm attracting all this negativity in the world. Yeah, I'm not saying no. I took it for sure. Yeah, no. Yeah. So, okay, so preparing the offer, right? You're going to talk to your client. You're going to run comparables for their, in this market, I still run comparables for them to see, right? But like in the end, in this market is whatever the heck the seller wants, right? As long as it's going to appraise, right? So I let them know like, hey, this is priced a little high. This is priced a little, or priced low or whatever. And that's how we collectively come to an agreement of a price that they feel comfortable with, right? Yes, we are the professional. Yes, we have a little more experience, right? But as like my coach says, all you needed was a 75 to pass the test. So like we are not these super, super intellectual market experts, right? So you don't come from an authoritative como se dice, an authoritative point of view, right, or perspective. You come as a team, right, because you want them to feel like you guys are doing this together. You're on this journey with them. So when you guys come together to talk about a price that they feel comfortable with and terms that they feel comfortable with, right, it's a much better experience than pushing them into something that they don't want, right?
How are you handling the multiple offers, knowing that the property is probably not going to appraise?
So it all depends on, that's why I like talking to the agent, right? The listing agent, whether it's in person or over the phone or all of that, right? I feel like, for example, right? Because I'm better at backing it up with a story. I went to show a property in Pines. It's a condo. I knew for a fact that it's overpriced, right? So when I got there, I showed the condo to my client and I let her know like it's overpriced. But she is already at a point that she's so desperate to get a property already because we've put in 6 offers, and she's lost, that she's like, I don't care, right? Thankfully, she has money to put over appraised value, right? It's a condo. There wasn't as much traffic, although there was another person seeing it there. We put $3,000 over appraised value, and thankfully the lender got the appraisal waived, right? But the listing agent did tell me, I know it's overpriced, right? So I'm like, okay, he knows it's overpriced.
Yeah, they don't care.
Right. He's like, and I've had the conversation with my seller. Okay, they wanted me to price it at that, but that's why communication is important, not only with your client, but with the listing agent as well, right? Because you're both trying to get to the closing table, So he was like, I've talked to the seller. He knows it's overpriced. He wanted to put it out there and see what happened. I said, okay, no problem. But they know it's overpriced, right? So my client's biggest concern was like, well, how about if this isn't appraised and they won't negotiate? I said, well, you already offered them $3,000. So if it doesn't appraise, they're already getting $3,000 over what it's going to appraise for. So that's a little bit more comfort for the seller, right? Now, thankfully, we were able to get the appraisal waived completely. And I asked her, do you want to waive the appraisal? And she said, absolutely, because she knew that there was going to be an appraisal issue. So that was done. So there's like different ways, as long as you're working with everybody collectively to get to the same place, to get to the same result, there's different ways to maneuver it. But again, I don't get every offer accepted on the first shot. She took me 6 times, and she was putting on some of them $5,000, $6,000 over appraised value. She's just in a very competitive price point. That $400,000 price point is beyond competitive. Everything flies off the market, but I set that expectation. And every time she called me to tell me, oh my God, I lost out on another one. What am I going to do? Maybe I should just stop looking. And I said, it's going to cost you more to stop looking, okay? Because you don't know what rates are going to do, right? So how about if rates continue to go up? Your buying power is going to continue to go down, right? So you have to talk your buyers off the ledge many times. Hence why emotional control is important. Especially now. Right. And that goes back to setting the right expectations. Okay. So running comparables. I'm like, it's like so much information with buyers. Running comparables, working closely with your lender to confirm that they can afford it. Right. So even if you're going to submit an offer and your client tells you, yeah, I'm going to put $5,000 over appraised value. Do they have the $5,000? Right? Because they may be saying yes, not realizing like, hey, you still have down payment. You still have closing costs. And now on top of that, it's $5,000 because some of them don't know that. So you have to break it down and then talk to the lender and make sure that this person, in fact, has that money. Okay? And then, so I play around with the terms, right? Depending on the property, depending on how long the property's been on the market, depending on how much demand I feel like there is for the property, I will mostly play with the terms, especially if I know that the property is in high demand, my client doesn't have a lot of money to put over appraised value, right? My terms need to be guns blazing, right? So that means the shortest inspection period possible, and you explain this to the client, right? This is why I'm doing this way, because we're not offering a ton, because we don't have money to offer, or not enough money, or however much money we think we should be offering over appraised value. We need to make sure that the terms are super attractive, right? So the inspection period, no more than 3 days. I can call right now and get an inspector to go to a property to do it for me tomorrow and give me an inspection report in 2 hours. So I know for a fact that I could put a 1-day inspection. Now, You have to explain to your buyer that then they only have that one day to back out for any inspection related issues, right? So you have to explain that to your buyer because that's super important. In this market, I have had zero pushback from the buyers. Zero pushback. I had one buyer that asked me, well, why are we doing, I think I did 3 days. Why are we doing 3 days when here it says up to 15 days? I'm like, girl, let me tell you, if I send an offer with a 15-day inspection in this market, I think the listing agent will think I am insane. Insane, and I deserve to be in a mental hospital. Like, insane. What?
I put in an offer for my father-in-law
Uh-huh.
for a duplex,
Uh-huh.
and we put in 10,000 over asking cash,
Okay.
and they sent me an email saying that we were going to be the backup offer, and then when I realized I put a 15-day inspection, that's why. I was like, man, that's probably why that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been many factors, but for sure, somebody sent an offer with much less than 15 days.
Yeah.
1,000%. Huh? Especially on a multifamily, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and again, oh, it's there. You have to have a good inspector. You know, another thing that I'm going to say that a lot of people don't tell you, right? When you are referring inspectors to your buyers, right? Make sure you're referring more than one, right? Because I know someone that referred, actually, she covered her butt. She referred 3, okay? And the buyer picked one and still told her, hey, but this is the one you referred because the inspector missed something on the inspection, right? So they wanted to come after her because it was her inspector that she referred. But she said, no, which is why she was covered. I referred 3. You chose 1. You could have picked any of the 3. And hence why she did not get in any type of trouble, that he couldn't come after her for anything because she covered herself. Do not refer just 1.
I know someone who's getting sued right now because of that.
Yep.
They
Yep.
referred one, the inspector or someone, just
Yep.
one person, and that happened.
I make
I
sure.
think it's the most important one out of all
Yeah.
the 3 referrals you're gonna make.
Yep.
With title lending, and because that one there is like a huge
Is it
financial.
best to tell them, like, you choose someone,
Well,
I mean, no. No.
Someone that you
No.
know goes quick.
Yeah.
So you can call them on the cell phone.
Yeah.
You can give them the code if you're not making it on time. Hey, I'll be there. in 10
But-
minutes. Go ahead, start.
But that's
Like that.
that's the importance of building the relationships with multiple inspectors, right? So like I've used several inspectors that I know that number 1 will go there tomorrow, okay, and number 2 will have the report to me within hours, right? So I already know which 3 will do that. So those 3 are on an email,
yeah,
not verbal,
always on email.
not even on a text, because text could go away, okay? On an email, all 3, so that later on you could pull it up and be like, hey, I covered myself. Like this is, I told you guys, right? Okay, lenders, and I'm almost done. Work with a lender that you can get a 14-day loan commitment, a 7-day loan commitment. There's many that will. Some of them will tell you, no, I need 21 days or 30 days or 25 days. Okay, that's not the lender for you, not in this market. Find yourself a lender that can get your buyer a loan commitment in 7, 14. There's plenty of them. Plenty of them. I had it in 7. Yep. So and see, the listing agent seeing that makes you stand out, much more competitive, right?
Why do you make the deposit a weird number?
Oh, I forgot that. Okay, so I was laughing when I wrote that. The EMD, the earnest money deposit, right? Everybody puts 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, 25,000. Everybody does it in 5s, right? So if you do it just like everybody else, right, it's not going to set you apart, right? So I always do 16, 21, 11, or 12, or 17, right? Because if there's some that have 15, well, now I'm putting more, right? But if you're putting 15 and 20 just like everybody else, well, you're just like everybody else.
You're playing the prices right out here.
You know? What? Period. Okay. Let's talk about objections, which is my last slide. All right. I'm sure everybody's feeling it, right? Everybody tells me or you, oh, but the rates, they're so high. Oh, I'm going to wait till the rates go down, right? Everybody, I'm sure, has heard it at least once, right? And then I like to say the famous little thing, like, you date the rate, you marry the price, right? Yes, rates may go down, but what happens when rates go down? Prices come up, right? Because now the demand goes up because the interest rates are so low, right? So if you buy now, let's say your house, let's stick with the 400,000 that we were talking about, is 400,000, which doesn't even exist right now, but whatever. Is 400,000, but your interest rate is 7%, 7.5, whatever it is right now. Okay, now the rates go down to 5. Now that house that was 400,000, they're trying to sell it for 460, 470, maybe even 500, because sellers are crazy. Okay, so now, yeah, you're getting a rate at 2%, out of 5%, but you're paying $500,000 for this house when you could have paid 400, and now you refinance your property and you bring your rate down to 5%. Hello, winning. And you're competing with less buyers because obviously there's less buyers in the market trying to buy with the rates higher. So it's a win situation. Okay, also, so this part got explained to me actually last night. So you're also, which makes total sense, I just didn't say it in this way. The buyer's missing out on appreciation, right? There's tax advantages, and there's what I already said, the opportunity to refinance later, right? Now, the conversation of what is your money doing while you wait, right? It's just sitting in a bank. And as inflation goes up, that money is worth less, right? So now that $100,000 that you had sitting in your bank account is no longer worth $100,000. Okay, especially the biggest thing is if you work with investors, right, and your buyer's looking for an investment property, the tax credits that they get are great because that appreciation that they have, let's say they bought the house now, the property appreciated after a year, right? That appreciation wipes out the amount of taxes they have to pay, right? They write each other off. Now, if that buyer decides, oh wait, pause. Also, it's super important, and you urge your investors to partner with CPAs. CPAs can do what's called a cost segregation study for them, right? They'll sit down and they'll do like all their number stuff, which I'm not even good at. Half the time I'm like, yeah, just tell me what to do. Okay, and now this person who had their tax wiped out, right, can now go ahead and buy another property, right? That cost segregation study that they did, allowed them to, claim all of their losses in their first year. So whatever losses they thought they were going to have for the duration of the loan, of the 30-year loan, they can claim it in the first year. I think it's up to 80%, right? 80% in that first year, right? So they get a big tax break in that first year. Now, the next year, they can go ahead and buy a second property, right? And do it all over again. Why do you think that wealthy people sometimes don't pay taxes? Because they're very smart and they continue to rinse and repeat, copy, paste, right? Every single year. So these are all things that you can be explaining to your buyers, to people that didn't even know that they could become investors, right? You turn them into buyers, right? By studying, like that whole cost segregation thing is just something new that I learned too. And I've been doing this for 8 years. You learn something new every day. And our job as realtors is to add value to our clients. Got it? Oh, that's it. Okay, so questions, comments,
Very good.
anything.
Spot on.
I learned a lot.
Many-
So I'm gonna do a little EXP portion. So whoever wants to stay can stay, whoever wants to go can go. But I want to offer the same opportunity that was offered to me because I think it's freaking amazing. Okay? So if you guys want to stay, get food, please. Make yourself comfortable.
How many
Go ahead.
buyers do you work with at any given time?
So buyers, you should not work with more than 6 or 7 buyers at any given time. And that's pushing it.
That many buyers at any time?
Not anymore. I'm a mom now. But when I wasn't a mom, yes. Right? When I wasn't a mom, this was like working with buyers, it was my baby. Right? Like my business was my baby. I mean, it still is, but now I have a real baby. Right? A real living, breathing baby. You know? What? Living, breathing one. So I have been so fortunate to be able to transition more into the listing side, right? It's because with listings, you can take endless amount of listings, right? Whereas buyers take up more of your time because you have to show, because you have to, baby them and nurture them. I still take buyers because I'm not going to say no to business, but I prefer being more on the listing side now. Even though, really, like deep down inside, if I were to say which one I enjoy more sometimes is buyers. As crazy as that sounds, I think I have like some sick, twisted brain.
It's always more exciting to work with buyers.
It is. I have a sick, twisted mind. Yeah. Let me stop this.